Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So, I know I am late to actually review the content. The show's been out for a while, but still, hopefully this review can be interesting to you. And before I start, I would like to offer a disclaimer beforehand. This review is purely based on my personal feelings and recollections of the novel and the TV show. I did not watch or read any reviews on the internet and did not let any of them influence my opinion. So if you see similar opinions elsewhere, it's purely coincidental. If my opinions are somehow distinct, then maybe it's good for me. Okay, so let's begin. To lay the foundation, Interior Chinatown is a Hulu TV series adapted by a novel of the same name by a Chinese-American screenwriter and novelist, Charles Yu. It tells the story of a young Chinese man named Willis Wu, who gradually becomes aware of the fact that he lives in a TV show and comes to understand the real reason behind his older brother's disappearance. The novel, being the quote-unquote original story of the TV show, tells a similar story. But since I started watching the TV show first, I will give my thoughts on the novel after I give my thoughts on the series. When I first saw the trailers for the Hulu series, I was not really intrigued. It showed Ronnie Chang and Jamie O Yang in Chinatown doing Kung Fu. They are both actors/comedians I like, but I was under the impression that this could just be another typical Asian series. And only later when I heard about its setting did I become more interested in watching, because I myself am working on a novel with what I thought was a similar setting. As it turned out, the setting is only slightly similar, but the story got me hooked after the first 2 episodes. In the Hulu series, Jimmy O Yang played our protagonist Willis Wu, who was working at his uncle's Chinese restaurant as a waiter. And like all main characters, he has dreams to become more. But when he actually tried to do more with his life after witnessing a crime, he found that his attempts were blocked by a mysterious force. After a few more tries, he found that he's actually a character inside of a TV show named Black and White, as a generic Asian side character in Chinatown. With this revelation in mind, he began investigating the disappearance of his older brother, who was once the hero of Chinatown, and at the same time, the personal hero of Willis Wu. Comedian Ronnie Chang played Willis Wu's best friend Fatty Choi, a busboy of the Chinese restaurant, who later took over Willis's waiter responsibilities and went on an adventure of his own. Chloe Bennett played Lana Lee, a Chinese-American detective working with the 2 main characters of Black and White. And the connection for Willis to the inside of the police department, it helped him gain access to the information he needed. And then there are other familiar faces in the cast if you've paid attention to Asian American cinema. I won't list them all here. All I want to say is every actor did a pretty good job. There was no cheesy acting, all the characters are relatively well fleshed out and convincing. Ronnie Chang's Fatty Choi performance was entertaining, and you can see that it matched really well with his public media persona. He's somewhat of a comedic relief, with just the right amount of depth. Jimmy O Yang's performance is eye-opening, to be honest. Before this performance, he was mostly known as a comedic actor and comedian. His portrayal of Jian Yang in Silicon Valley is still one of my favorite characters of all time, and I enjoyed his Amazon Prime special.
It's from your mom.
But I did not expect his ability to carry dramatic performance like he did in this show. He really made Willis Wu a fun, thoughtful, and relatable character you just can't help rooting for. One of my favorite scenes of him was one where he is on the roof with his father. His father was telling him that after the disappearance of his first son and Willis Wu's older brother, he lost his focus and forgot who he could be. Then Willis Wu asked, "But what about my dad?" and then immediately proceeded to apologize. It was such a heartbreaking and yet at the same time character-building moment. The story itself was dramatic, but it doesn't contain much if any melodrama, and though it being a meta show, there's no annoying or inappropriate winking at the camera moments. It touches on some pretty commonly discussed, and at times cliché ideas of Asian representation in modern media, as well as criticisms against cheap plots and twists in a lot of modern stories. It was well written. There are a few side stories that can be a little bit hit or miss, but in general the show has good main plot. There's also some very intriguing mysteries in the show, aside from the obvious revelation that the character finds himself inside of a TV show. And even if you don't care as much for some of the themes being discussed in the show, the mysteries will keep most people intrigued and entertained. And kudos to Hulu for being able to laugh at themselves a little bit in the show. And if you watch the show, you'd know. I have some gripes with how the story ends though, and I feel like it's probably due to the writers having inevitably written themselves into a wall. It was not the worst ending for a series, but I just couldn't help but feel there's a lot of missed opportunities. Speaking of missed opportunities, let's go into the review for the book.
But he said that you said Oculus. He said you kept saying it. Oculus, Oculus, Oculus.
Octopus.
As I mentioned, I started reading the novel after I started watching the show. So there might be some bias here because of how the series sets up my expectations for the novel. But even setting that aside, all I can say is this. The novel is really not that good. This might be one of the weird cases where the adaptation of a novel is leaps and bounds ahead of the original in terms of story quality. The writer behind the TV adaptation actually made the story a lot more interesting. The characters more compelling, relatable, and likable. Now I don't know if Charles Yu, the author, has any major roles in writing the adaptation screenplay, but whether he does or not, I would say it would be best if he writes stories more like how the show goes and less like how the novel goes. The novel story also follows the main character Willis Wu, and his sort of adventure in the world of TV series Black and White. He also lives in Chinatown and has a best friend named Fatty Choi, and the story heavily touches on Asian representation issues. That's probably where the similarities end. The main mystery of Willis Wu being in a TV show was treated rather aimlessly and weightlessly in the book. I couldn't even remember whether he already knew before the story starts or he found out about it somewhere along the way. There's a hero, Big Brother of Chinatown, who also went missing, but he's not related to Willis Wu, so there's no motivation for him to investigate. The main character is cynical, self-loathing, but also self-righteous in a lot of ways. The constant cheap mention of Asian representation is just about every corner in the book. If I had a nickel every time it is mentioned, I might just get double the price I pay for the paperback book. The story itself is rather boring and plain. You can't feel that the main character truly desires or cares about anything, because he just casually knows that he is a generic Asian TV character. Some of the great plot twists and world-building mysteries in the Hulu TV series are just casually tossed around by the main character, like it's the same level of information about how much a steam bomb costs. He also has a romantic relationship with a detective named Karen Lee, who is the base character for Lana Lee in a TV show, which happened without almost any chemistry and seems just like a cheap side plot to talk about working family drama. If there's one thing the novel got right, it's how crowded and stressful living in Chinatown is, or at least how it is portrayed in modern media. Fatty Choi as a side character is almost non-existent in the book. There's at least a few dozen mentions of how crowded and messy the place is. Look, I get it. Making a cynical, self-loathing character is kind of the point of the story. But when your main character learns nothing, barely makes an attempt, and then through the narrative voice shows a passive-aggressive condescension towards the media the book is trying to critique, it's not a good character and it ruins the story. Everything feels like it's a Reddit rant with self-insert characters shoved in. It's boring, and it feels like a chore to get through the entire book. And the ending, I don't really care. It feels like a waste of time, and it did not leave a good taste in my mouth. Oh, and before anyone mentions something about the buzzword of Asian representation, let me address it here. Discussing an idea shouldn't be a burden on your storytelling. It should be a flavor, not the main course.
It was said.
It's a minor point of annoyance in the Hulu series, given its smart writing and witty display. Because overall, there's only so many white people, am I right? Jokes you can tell in a show before it gets stale. And in the book, it's almost everywhere and utterly grating to read. It's just not something that will attract me to the stories. It's like an annoying gong that bangs every time the writer feels he's being clever. So how would I rate Interior Chinatown, the Hulu TV series, versus the book? On a scale of 1 to 5, I'll give the TV series a 3.8. The story is solid, the acting is good. I just don't like how the story wraps up. Some of the gags feel cheap and at times too preachy. I would still recommend it to anyone interested. As for the book, 2 out of 5. I didn't give it 1 because it at least shows some themes and scenes well. and I can feel the boredom and emotional drain of being stuck from the character. But that was about it. I would not recommend it. If you're interested in the story, check out the TV show. That will be all for this video. Thank you for watching. And if you would like to check out my work, please check out the links below. I am currently working on a lit RPG horror comedy called Rule Survive the Show. I will provide updates here when it's about to release. Bye!
Suppose you are down on your luck. What are you willing to do just to afford rent next month? Are you willing to sign up for a fantasy-themed reality TV game show? Liang Wu was faced with this option. He made a choice, and he chose wrong.